All right, YouTube. This Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit. Tuesday, the 19th. Today we're gonna discuss the latest Democratic propaganda as it relates to Donald Trump using the word bloodbath. Now, I'm going to show you how they twist words and take things out of context to paint a narrative. Now, as you guys know, I'm from Detroit. You know what I mean? Born and raised in Detroit. When I was young, my father worked at Ford Motor Company. My grandfather retired from General Motors, and my uncles worked at Chrysler. So during that time, every other year, my father would get a brand new car. Every other year, my grandfather would get him a Bonneville. My uncles would get them cars, and we had nice clothes and nice things, and the community uh, was safe. You know what I mean? People were thriving in the neighborhoods. Around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you'll see the fathers in the neighborhood pulling up in their cars, coming from the factories. You know what I mean? I think at that time my mother had a Mustang. She had a Ford Mustang because we always had Ford cars. So my father worked at Ford. You know, Perfect childhood, good childhood as far as economics. Of course, every family and community has issues, but economics wasn't one of them. You know what I mean? Community wasn't one of them. So when somebody says make America great again, they act as if there were never great times, you know. And when Donald Trump is talking about how this government allowed China to partner with Mexico to build cars to sell them to the United States while nobody imports American cars to other countries. That's what he meant when he was talking about a bloodbath as far as the auto industry and the economics in this country. But they like to twist words and they like to fearmonger. And it's strange that everything these Democrats accuse Donald Trump of, they do. And they really are in a panic because they act as if we don't remember 4 years of Donald Trump and we're not living in the 4 years of Biden. And I look at even in the comments on this channel, and my channel is a relatively small channel and it's basically community. You know what I mean? I'm getting to the point to where I know the people in my comments. And I look and sometimes I see somebody who may not agree with things I'm saying and they get in the comments and they try to be disrespectful to the people in the community. And sometimes I think about blocking them and removing their comments. But everybody has the right to their own opinion. So this is about free speech. So I leave the comments up. They come in with their weird religious ideology. They come in here with a Trump hating and conservative hating. And my first instinct be to block them. But I let their statements stand. You know what I mean? Because nobody wants to be censored and not have a voice. But I request that they be respectful. So this morning, what I'm going to do is we're going to look at what Trump actually said. You know what I mean? And we're going to look at how they spent and used his words. So this is for fair usage under the 1976 Copyright Act for commentary and educational purposes. Check this out and tell me what you really see that Trump said in Ohio. Check it out.
It is the official start of the 2024 race, which means it is also the official start of Trump said X news cycle. One of the things that he said was definitely headline worthy. The other one was twisted and turned into a little bit. We put those two together so we can react. Let's take a listen.
If I had prisons that were teeming with MS-13 and all sorts of people that they've got to take care of for the next 50 years, right? Young people, they're in jail for years, if you call them people. I don't know if you call them people. In some cases, they're not people, in my opinion, but I'm not allowed to say that because the radical left says that's a terrible thing to say. They say you have to vote against him because did you hear what he said about humanity? I've seen the humanity, and these are bad. These are animals, okay? And we have to stop it. We can't have another Laken. We have so many people. We have so many people being hurt so badly and being killed. They're sending their prisoners to see us. They're bringing them right to the border, and they're dropping them.
Now, I'm going to interject this time. He's right. It's a proven fact that Venezuela and other South American countries are emptying out their prisons and bringing them to the border. It's just like when Castro did it back in the early 80s when he emptied out his prisons and asylums and sent them to Florida. So he's not lying. You know, they like to say that Donald Trump be lying, but for some reason, every time he says something, it seems to be true. They just don't like how he says it. You know what I mean? But the left is so radicalized that their opinion of conservative people is like we're the enemy, while they erode the moral fiber of the country, while they destroy the nuclear family. You know, look at the stuff they keep getting caught up in. Everything they accuse Trump of, it seems that they're the ones doing it, but they twist the words. So finish watching this and tell me what you think.
And we're allowing them to come in, and these are tougher than anybody we've got in the country. These are hardened criminals. Mexico has taken, over a period of 30 years, 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country. Think of it. Went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
So clearly, he's talking about the auto industry. Because could you imagine? This is Detroit that I'm in, the Motor City. Majority of the good jobs and the high earning people in this city are in the factories. So if they're being undercut by China in Mexico, they're going to be laid off, unemployed, and this city will be worse than it ever was. Because right now it's on a decline because of what they're doing in the automotive industry. Now, they want to somehow tie that statement to some type of political violence, just like they say that January 6th was an insurrection. I challenge all my subscribers to actually look up the word insurrection. Look at the definition. It's time out for us to continue to let the left create a narrative and mislead the people. You know what I mean? Right now, you have social media battling mainstream media. because their narrative is so detrimental to the country, and the way they spin words and the way they make things look is horrible. I mean, like, aren't you guys tired of being lied to and manipulated? You know what I'm saying? Why don't you just run against the man? And what do you really have against true Christian values and a nuclear family? You know, this this election year, you got to be careful because they're gonna come out with every dirty trick, every underhanded scheme that they can to twist the narrative so that they can maintain control over the country as they erode the moral fiber, destroy the Constitution, and keep pushing this nefarious agenda that they've been working on for the last 3 years. Again, you see it in the comments on my channel. And my channel is, like I say, it's a small channel. It's a small community on here. And I see people, they come in and they want to say these radical and crazy things in the comments. And my first instinct, like I told you, is to block them. But I think it's more important to expose the insanity that comes out their mouths. So we're going to continue to watch this and look at what they really say.
All right, so Crystal, those were the two controversial things that Trump said. One of them he's actually said before. I remember when he said it whenever he was president. The other about the bloodbath comment, though, this is how some of our media outlets covered it. Let's go ahead and put these up there on the screen. Here's the major takeaways. At least CNN, ironically, did end up writing it correctly. They say Trump warns of a bloodbath for the auto industry and the country if he loses the election. That's actually accurate. Politico, though, Trump says country faces bloodbath if Biden wins in November. New York Times, Trump says some migrants are not people and then predicts a bloodbath if he loses. NBC News, Trump says there will be a bloodbath if he loses the election. Bloodbath now being seized upon, even though it was clear, if you watch it, it's obviously in the context of the U.S. auto industry. Even the New York Times, only half of their headline correct. And, Ryan McGrim made a point on whenever he was following this. Trump, prior to going on stage, had talked about how he wants all of his people to snap to attention the way that they do in North Korea with Kim Jong-un. And Ryan was like, guys, he says enough actually crazy shit that you don't need to invent news cycles about the things that he said to go after it. But they were so desperate, for the bloodbath comment.
That's how I feel about it as well. Right. I mean, if you listen to the whole context, he throws in that thing at the end of and that'd be the least of it, which kind of muddles the comments and gives them a little bit of something to stand on of see, he's talking about the country as a whole. But obviously, if you're an ordinary person, you're reading those headlines, you hear Trump, says it's going to be a bloodbath. If he loses, you're thinking about January 6th, you're thinking about political violence. You're not assuming that he was, building up to this with this whole long rant about the auto industry and China taking our jobs, et cetera. So yes. I do think that's very misleading. And, we played the comments that he just said about immigrants, which are horrifying and disgusting on their own. So when you mess around with the other comments that...
Everything he said about the immigrants, they're doing. I mean, look at what the immigrants are doing to New York, to Chicago, to California. Look how they just arrested Venezuelan gang leaders. So the narrative that they're trying to spin as it relates to immigration, as if these people are looking for a better way of life. If they're such good people, why didn't they make a better way of life in their own country? And why are the resources that American citizens need being diverted to people who are not Americans? Why are they changing the social structure of this country to accommodate people that's not even from here? It's almost like we're being betrayed by the people who govern. And they want to keep making it like we're this caring country, but look how many veterans that are homeless. Why we don't take care of our own first? Does, isn't the old adage, charity starts at home? So we're gonna look at some more.
He made, and you intentionally muddle the meaning of them, it gives you less credibility to talk about the things that he says that, in my opinion, really should be out of bounds. And just to address that directly, and I do think that watching what's unfolding in Gaza has made me perhaps more sensitive to this type of directly dehumanizing language than perhaps I would be otherwise, because we can see in real time what the potential atrocities and results and horrors that unfold when you routinely dehumanize a group of people. But it's fine, as we do, to have an argument about what the appropriate immigration policy should be and what that should look like. You shouldn't have to lie to do that, which he is lying when he talks about, they're emptying their prisons, and paints the entire migrant population as a bunch of criminals and loot.
She's lying. They've already proven it, that the Venezuela emptied their prisons, and Venezuela has also stated they will not take them back. They will not take them back. So you can't even deport them because you have nowhere to send them. Nobody wants them.
Overwhelming majority of people who are coming here, they're fleeing violence, they're coming for economic reasons. Again, you can debate how many of those individuals have legitimate asylum claims and how many should be let in and what we should do. But you shouldn't have to rely on lies to make the case. And also, you shouldn't have to rely on stoking false fears of this existential threat of, this overwhelming wave of criminal migrants in order to make your case either. And so I do think that is disgusting. I think it's condemnable, and I think it's dangerous.
I think it's fair for you to say that. Look, and I'm not going to defend what he said, but I will at least make the political point.
Let me ask you guys a question. How many criminals from other countries is too much or too many? Is one criminal that comes here legally too much? I would say so. But when you talk about hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, then Trump is absolutely right.
Trump's genius is always, as he says, the most outrageous thing. And he gets people to say, no, actually, some criminals are human, whatever, And then now you're actually talking within the frame of migrant criminality and or the murder, as you said, of Lake and Riley, which is what he was trying to raise. I agree with you. I personally would like it if people debated things the way that we do here, and we can talk about it in a respectful manner. But that's...
So you mean to tell me that Lincoln Riley was sacrificed in the name of inclusiveness? Her life is a sacrifice so that you could say that we're migrant friendly. Think about what these people are actually saying.
How politics works, right? Everything is about seizing upon the most outrageous and extreme example and using that in order to cast your enemy. So, personally, what I do think at least is, again, I'm not defending it, but I can only analyze in the politics of this, is that if you have a media outrage cycle of people being like, hey, Trump says migrants are not people are going to be like, well, hold on a second. If you watch the clip, we're talking here about people who are MS-13 gang members. Now, you can go and you can analyze the number of people who actually do commit crime or whatever. But, in general, people do feel a certain different way about people who are here illegally committing crime versus legal citizens, because people who are illegally shouldn't have been here in the first place. And in general, I think I would say probably to his political benefit, given the way that people feel about the immigration crisis, regardless of whether you think he's telling the truth or not.
Go ahead. That's why he does it. It's
yes,
obvious
that's right.
That's why he does it. I'm not talking about the political benefit or optics or whether it's good for him or bad for him. I'm talking about the morality of it. And, I do think it's absolutely condemnable. He catches you in a trap because on the one hand, if you ignore the things that he is saying, right, then that sort of rhetoric and, really disgusting, dehumanizing rhetoric becomes normalized and almost accepted. If you cover it, and you talk about it and you say this is condemnable and we should in fact condemn it and this should, listen, you have your first.
I have a problem with Joe Biden saying that if black people went to school with his children, they would turn the school system into jungles. What does that mean? That if black children go to school with white children, those schools will become jungles. See, it's a difference between what Trump says and what Biden actually did to our community. You know what I mean? They want to act as if we're so dumb or we're so brainwashed that we can't see what's going on in our lives, that we can't feel the pinch in our wallets. You know, the cognitive dissonance on the left or the arrogance that they have as it relates to the American populace is ridiculous.
The First Amendment speech rights, but as decent moral people, we shouldn't be in the business of dehumanizing immigrants. We shouldn't be in the business, as he's also done, of dehumanizing like leftists as vermin. We shouldn't be talking about immigrants using Nazi language, which he doubled down again when that Howard Kurtz interview that we played part of, saying, yes, they're poisoning the blood of the country, that we shouldn't be doing that. Then you are sort of playing on his turf because now, what are we talking about? We're talking about immigration. And that's the issue where he's strong and where Biden's approval ratings are the lowest. So he does politically catch you in a trap, which, yeah, you're right. That's exactly why he does it. But you also can't ignore the fact that he has some, really hardline immigration restrictionists in his circle. And that some of the policies that he implemented last time around, some of which, by the way, Biden continued, but he is at least positioning himself to be even more hardline this time. So it is legitimate to talk about the way the rhetoric informs the actual policy decisions as well. But I mean, you're right, Sagar. It is definitely like a well-laid political trap. And that's precisely why he does it. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I remember watching it because there was some meeting. I think it was something about MS-13. This is the first time he ever did the animals comment. It was in front of Nancy Pelosi. It sparked this whole thing, and I just remember, like, man, they go for it every time. In terms of how it generally works out for him. On this one, we will see. By the way, it's possible that's why the Biden administration decided to seize not necessarily on the migrant comment, but on the quote-unquote bloodbath thing to try and turn it into a thing. Here is a perfect example of how the media ran with it. We have Jen Psaki, the former press secretary, on her new MSNBC show with the Biden campaign's communications director, both of them trying to turn the bloodbath thing into a conversation around political violence, which is definitely ground where they have benefited in the past. Here's what they had to say.
What I heard was a continuation of the same rhetoric, the same endorsement of political violence that we've seen from Donald Trump for years, as you pointed out. It goes even farther back, right? This is the same guy who, after Nazis marched on Charlottesville and killed a woman, said there were very fine people on both sides. This is the same guy who, in 2020, told the Proud Boys, a white supremacist group, to stand back and stand by. And now every single day on the stump, he is championing and praising the insurrectionists who he encouraged to violently storm the Capitol in an attempt to overthrow our democracy. So it's not simply one comment. This is exactly who Donald.
They want to find a black guy so he can be a sellout. Yeah, he's a sellout. Because at this point, we're not going to talk about what's going on in our communities. We're not going to talk about the resources that's being diverted from American people to people who came in this country illegally. We're not going to talk about double standards and getting comfort and aid to the intruders. They're going to find a black guy.
Trump is, and this is exactly the threat that he poses to our democracy every single day. I think the problem for Trump, though, is that the American people saw what happened.
We don't have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic. In democracy, is an idea that comes straight out of Plato's Republic. Think about it. Let's be actual and factual. Democracy. You know, I think the Democrats, they like to play the democracy card because it sounds similar to Democrats. So you identify Democrats with this utopian idea of everybody being equal and treated fairly. You know what I mean? Nobody has to get things accomplished on their own merit.
On January 6th, and they've responded consistently since, right? They responded in 2022 when Democrats had the most successful midterm cycle for a Democratic incumbent since FDR. They continued to respond last year in states like Kentucky, Ohio, and Virginia in the fall elections then, and they're continuing to respond right now. That's why we're on our front foot heading into this general election, because the American people fundamentally understand, A, what Joe Biden has done to fight on behalf of the American people over the course of the last 3 years, but they see every single day now the threat that Donald Trump poses if he's able to regain power. He is talking every single day about tearing down the fabric of our democracy and enacting political revenge if he's able to serve on a dictator on day one, as he is promising to do.
So that was Michael Tyler. He's the communications director, very much trying to turn the bloodbath thing into a major story. So any final thoughts here, Crystal, in terms of the media handling and all this?
Well, just to reiterate, I mean, Trump does talk all the time about how he's going to, pardon the people that were there on January 6th who were convicted of crimes or whatever. Like, you don't have to invent a context that didn't exist for the bloodbath comments in order to make the case that he's making there. And
I think you're right.
And it undercuts your credibility in the long run. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber.
Shout out to Breaking Points. Before I get off this video, am I wrong for being born and raised in Detroit, the Motor City, the automotive capital of the world, to not want China creating large automobile factories right across our border, not hiring Americans, but making cars and selling them to Americans while they don't purchase cars from America? What does that look like for Detroit? What does it look like for Detroit? Why are these people trying so hard to slander and demonize Donald Trump instead of just fighting him on the policies? So I want you to think about what you heard, what's been said, and what you see, and as American people, where do we stand? Do we stand with other foreign nationals, or do we put God and country first? That's the question for the day. Signing to you out of Detroit. Keep your head on a swivel. Salute to all the patriots. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.